evening, everyone. It's really nice to be here, to see so many people here stay to the end. I was a bit worried about being the third speaker and speaking to 3 people, which I still didn't mind. It's fine. Thank you to Zena, Gloucestershire County Cricket Club, for arranging the event. I think they've put themselves out there to do this, and I think it's great. Volunteers working in the evening, giving up their own time. It's just fantastic to see in the world of sustainability in sport. In terms of my colleagues today, it's so good to hear from them. It's actually the first time I met them. Russell, with so much experience in sustainability, Steve giving the specifics of his journey, which I thought was really, really interesting, and Tanya from a journalist point of view, and some of the stats that she shared were just fantastic, I thought. Introducing myself, I'm Azif Rehmanwala. I'm the CEO of Electricity Group. It's the world's first renewable energy company, started about 30 years ago when people didn't really believe in climate change. And I'm also CEO of Green Britain Group, which is kind of like a new group which focuses on decarbonisation in energy, transport and food. And Forest Green Rovers, the world's greenest football club, sits within that umbrella of companies. And I'm Executive Vice Chairman of Forest Green, and I joined the board here at Gloucestershire County Cricket Club about 2.5 years ago to work with the team here to progress the club here in all different dimensions. And it's like a dream, really, because I'm born and bred in Cheltenham, so I'm a Gloucestershire person, Gloucestershire boy, and to be involved in the cricket clubs, cricket club, the main cricket club, and one of the big football clubs in the region is fantastic. When I was putting this first slide together, it felt to me after I completed it that it sounded a bit too much about me, but it really wasn't meant to. It was meant to really introduce the different organisations, the great organisations that are doing some fantastic things in this space, and to share them with you. So I've already said, Electricity, Green Britain Group, part of the same group. It's all about decarbonisation across energy, transport and food, the 3 areas that make 80% of a person's carbon footprint. And then I'm also going to talk mostly today about covering sport as a leader in business and what we do at Forest Green Rovers and what we do at Gloucestershire County Cricket Club. So I've been in the energy industry for nearly 25 years, and when I started in the industry, it was all about protecting the coal mines and protecting coal-fired power stations. So it was a pretty poignant moment a couple of weeks ago when the last coal-fired power station in the UK closed, Ratcliffe, where I spent a week of my life, maybe 15 years ago, a bit longer, to move to no coal in the UK. No one would have predicted that. We didn't predict that at E.ON where I worked, or the government where I worked before that 25 years ago. So we've come a long way, but there's still a long way to go. And my first association with sport, apart from playing as a youngster, cricket and football, was when I was at E.ON, the world's largest investor-owned utility, where they sponsored the FA Cup in England for a few years. And I tried to make a change there by informing the FA, informing E.ON that sustainability was going to be the next thing in sport. But they couldn't see it back then, a bit like the government 25 years ago when it came to protecting coal. So again, we've come a long way, but there's still quite a long way to go. And sport now is really, I think, on the cusp of making or being a conduit to big change when it comes to sustainability. And to start off with, I wanted to talk about sustainability in sport in terms of what Forest Green Rovers are doing. So the UN have named us the world's greenest football club, and the chairman and the owner and the founder, Dale Vince, who's a green industrialist, has to take a lot of credit for that because he's put himself out there and he's kind of made that wave of change, which I just think is fantastic, and to work for him and work for the organisation to make that change has been just phenomenal. I wanted to share a few things really that I think are important, what I would call enablers to making a change, and share that with people. So I'm not going to read all the words, but when it comes to what an organisation, what a body, what a sport needs to do, first of all, you have to identify the gaps. Plan what you're going to do it, and then check it, and then work on the next action. And in terms of when it comes to the carbon footprint, is of course about avoiding it, reducing it where you can't avoid it, and then replace. And having a policy is so important. And yeah, that's just a really, really key thing. And we've implemented ISO to ensure that we've got the quality across that policy. So it's like a framework, I guess, is what I'm trying to say there. In terms of energy, well, listen, generate electricity through solar. We've heard about that. In Australia, use a battery to store electricity. You know, in the last 20 years, you could not store electricity. When you flick the switch and the light comes on, it literally was generated 7 seconds ago and come through the distribution lines. Now you can store electricity in a battery, large scale in a field, or small scale in a house. So you can optimize the use of solar power generation by storing it in the battery when you don't need it and using it when you need it. And we've been doing that at Forest Green Rovers. LED lighting in display boards, optimizing heating, and infrared heating as well. I've said I'm not going to read the words, but I probably will end up reading them because they're all such important things. Transport, well, we've got EV charge points. We operate a park and ride, bike storage, etc. We monitor fans' emissions and look at alternatives that will reduce the carbon footprint. We became the world's first vegan football club about 7 or 8 years ago. Now, we did get some stick for that. And we still get some banter from away fans saying, here's a beef burger or something, throwing it on the pitch. But it was just such an amazing change. And the vegan food, welcome anyone there to come and taste the vegan food. It is absolutely fantastic, a bit like the food that was here today. So food is a different frontier, and I think sport has a big role to play when it comes to food and decarbonisation in the industry from a food point of view. And then, yeah, of course, there's things like the pitch, the kit, water, waste. So just to touch on them, pitch-wise, we've had one of the first robotic solar-powered lawnmowers at Forest Green Rovers. Climate change has meant that we had a number of matches cancelled last year due to rain, and that led to us really having a big think and implementing a hybrid pitch this year. It cost over £1 million, so as Tanya said, not everyone can afford that. We were fortunate to be able to do that, and we've just played 5 games in the last week when we've had 2 weeks of significant rain prior to that. So climate change is making a difference when it comes to putting matches on, and it's only really people can afford a hybrid pitch where you can mitigate that problem. So I think that's going to have a profound impact going forward if climate change continues in the direction it is before we put a stop to it. We use what we call P2Pitch, where we use the away fans' wee and put that on the pitch by cleaning it to use on the grass, which is fantastic. And yeah, waste as well is so important, and we have an electric tractor as well. So there's a number of things that we do at Forest Green Rovers. I should also say that it gets an outreach. So because of that sustainability, it punches a bit above its weight in terms of its message out to the world. So we did a study last year, and we've reached 5 billion people in terms of outreach through the power of social media and what we do from a sustainability point of view. We've got a carbon neutral stadium. That's also one of the first that is the first in the world. UN have told us that. And Dale Vince, the owner, is a UN ambassador. And in terms of actual impact, it comes down to carbon tonnes, doesn't it? That's how you measure it. And we've reduced carbon tonnes at the stadium from 115,000 carbon tonnes in 2017 to 54 last year. So that's halving in a few years. There will be a law of diminishing returns, but we will keep going as far as we can. And also, we've turned that stat into what that means for a fan. So we've been able to put a number on the kilograms of CO2 that per fan. So that's come down from 1.6 kilograms of CO2 per fan to 0.8. So we've halved that in the space of 7 or 8 years. And it's those kind of measures and metrics I think going to be really, really important going forward. We're going to build a new stadium called Eco Park, Junction 13 off the M5. I think it's going to be transformational for the region. There's a big envelope of space between Bristol and Birmingham where there's no big football club, and I live in Cheltenham, and I don't think Cheltenham's a big football club. I think we're going to take over them at Forest Green. That's a bit banter, football banter, but actually, we're going to build this eco park stadium. We're using one of the best sustainable architects, Zaha Hadid, to put that architecture together. And we're going to be a wooden football stadium, which is the most sustainable that you can have. Welcome you to go and have a look in Google. We've built our first 2 training pitches there, hybrid training pitches. We're going to build a hotel, eco offices, and be really ambitious as how far we can take it from a renewable energy and sustainability point of view, and try to make it as close to zero carbon as possible. But we will, of course, make it net zero with every action that we take. One of the things that came up in the roundtables, which were really, really engaging, really, really interesting, I felt, was people's passion, but also the message that there is education, communication, all those things that are kind of missing, a central body that are missing. And one of the things that is missing is a framework, a commitment framework. How does it all work? So to use the example in energy, the government are creating Great British Energy as a company. They're going to put £8.3 billion into that over the next 5 years. And they're going to have a conduit of private sector and public sector investment in renewable energy projects. Where do we see that commitment in sport, which is across so many people and so many different countries? Of course, we have the ministry, or the department is Department of Energy, Security and Net Zero when it comes to energy. When it comes to sport, it's with media and culture. So it's combined with others. It doesn't have its own minister, if you like, on sport. That will enable us to have that top-level commitment and across all sport in the UK, and then have a body that people can look up to. I think that's a really big change that's needed, and that's something I'm personally and we're going to lobby for. And in terms of the kind of next step of that kind of communication is a framework. So we've tried to create one at Forest Green Rovers, which the English Football League are using, called the Green Code. And I just wanted to touch on that because I think it's important that there is a framework that people can hold on to and use. So just to talk briefly about the Green Code, it's a global sustainability accreditation code that we've been using in the EFL. We've had about 100 organisations, mostly in the Football League, that have signed up to it. And it's, it helps an organisation build a robust framework and encompass, I've missed the words there, but basically track progress, improve and demonstrate what they're doing. Across 8 key areas: management, pollution, energy, transport, water, waste, procurement and biodiversity, the really key important things. And we've been able to specify that in terms of key performance indicators and numbers and metrics to be able to assess the performance of different organisations. And it's a self-assessment, and it spits out a action plan for those organisations. And there's different levels of accreditation. There are bronze, silver and green, of course, not gold, accreditation. And it's been ever so successful, and we've put here, and we've checked that we are able to say Bristol City Football Club have got that sustainability accreditation with a score of 80 out of 100 on the 6th of September 2023, which is obviously local to here. We think this is a code that can be used more widely in sport, across different sports. You may wonder what the cost is. £690 for a year. So the amount of money sports organisations, especially at the professional level, spend on so many things, we think is a drop in the ocean for that. And that's not really to make any money, that's to actually invest in the system to be able to give that opportunity for people to undertake that assessment and get that accreditation. So, yeah, that's the Green Code. Moving on to Gloucestershire County Cricket Club, which Zina said to me people will be interested in what we're doing here. Thank you to Neil for helping provide some of the specific information this week on that for the presentation. And yeah, I mean, when I joined Gloucestershire Cricket Club 2.5 years ago, it was really, really positive to see how much work the club has done in this space. It's the first cricket club to sign up to the Race to Zero initiative. It's working with partners to bolster sustainability activities. Got solar panels on the roof, which is just fantastic. EV charge points, although mine wasn't working when I came in, so I just wanted to talk about it later. EV incentive scheme for staff. bike racks on site, biodegradable cutlery and coffee cups, on-site gardens, community growing hub, which I just think is just such a nice thing to do, especially for the children in local schools. And then world first in buying a battery power mower. So it's punched above its weight, I think. There's more we can do, and clearly there's more the England Cricket Board and other counties and cricket can do in this space. I do think that football is ahead of cricket when it comes to sustainability from all the work that we've done on it and looked into it, but that's not a major issue. It's just a point of conversation, I guess, to say, come on cricket, we can raise our game and we can do a lot more. Key takeaways from my talk, and I'm not really sure how much time I've got left, but I think that sustainability has to be within the DNA of any sports organisation. Has to have a plan, has to have a policy, it's got to be a constant feedback loop. I think there has to be a sustainability lead and champion, and it's got to recognise its achievements. And just to finish on a couple of points, when it comes to a number of things that we have to do in professional clubs, we do them. So I was talking about one of the people here earlier, that we have to have a welfare officer, you have to have a safeguarding officer, so we do it. Why don't we have to have a sustainability officer? It will be a relatively low cost in terms of what you get back out of it. If every professional club had a sustainability officer and you had to have one, and there was some investment from central government like there is in safeguarding, then all of a sudden would make a really, really big change very, very quickly. Yes, you would have your diminishing returns, but then there'll be so many ideas out there that there'll be that big wave of initial change. So I guess I'm rounding off by saying, it sounds like, when I do these kind of talks, I sound like a half-glass empty kind of person. I'm really not. I'm really a half-glass full. I'm really positive. I think there's some excellent work that's been done, but I do think there are some big gaps. So one of the common themes that's been coming out in a lot of the talks that I've done recently in the energy market has been education and skills and knowledge. And I think where that comes from is a gap between primary and secondary education and what's needed in this space, not just this space, but other industries that are going to be the key top 20 jobs in the country over the next 10 or 15 years. The education system is not designed to, certainly not in primary school, it's still very outdated, to actually provide that experience to children, for them to take that into the workplace and be that next generation of people that are going to make this change and take us into the next era and this next generation. So I think from a global point of view, or from an overarching backdrop point of view, there's some work to be done from the government across different sectors, when it comes to the education sector, when it comes to the sporting sector itself, the energy sector. And I just hope that the government can see that and they're able to join the dots and not be so dislocated that we never get to a place where that is established. And I was looking at some quotes earlier, and I just thought it would be a great quote to end on that. We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. And to me, that's really, really striking. And it's just great to be here to talk to like-minded people about that kind of stuff. And yeah, I think that's me, and we're on to the next round table. Thank you.
Azif, thank you. You're a brave man to say you think football's doing more than cricket in a room full of cricket fans. We'll discuss it later. But some really good stuff in there. You know, some good points about what you can actually, you know, what you can do if you really put your mind to it, if you've got that leadership in place and it's single-minded and you take sustainability as one of your priorities. And you made a point around carbon footprints and highlighted energy, transport and food. There's kind of a rule of thumb in sustainability for individuals, for organisations, even for companies. This is a rule of thumb, around 80% of your carbon footprint is probably associated with the energy that you use, how you get around, your transport choices, and the food that you eat. So they really are priorities for us. I could go on about government strategy, and it is now in the government sports strategy. Sport England funding is going to be attached to sustainability. All governing bodies will have to have a sustainability policy in place by March 2027. So there is a push coming from government, coming from the policymakers around these issues. Anyway, I'm not here to talk. I said at the beginning, you don't need to hear from me. We've got the great speakers and we've got you guys talking as well. So, straight into that the third round table session. Here are your questions. 15 minutes. Go. See you back here in 15 minutes.
Driving the sport industry to environmentally